Hello there and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela Porter, and you're most welcome to join me as I spend some time today drawing for the pleasure of drawing, for no other reason. I've been taking part in Inktober Tangles 2022 for Inktober, the month of Inktober. We're nearly at an end. It's day 28 today. I'm definitely going to do day 28. I'm not sure about day 29 in one. We'll see how I get on. But I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed. It means an awful lot. Thank you. I really, really mean that. And for those of you who continue to visit but haven't subscribed, please consider clicking that button. It doesn't cost you anything, but it means the world to me. Thumbs up for videos are really lovely. And thank you as well to each and every one of you who's left me such lovely comments. I really, really do appreciate them, more than you could know. Okay, so on with Inktober. Today, day 28, so pattern 28 is Poppins. And Poppins is a pattern by Lisetta Hofer. Hofer? Not really sure. But it's a pattern that is quite familiar to me simply because I draw similar things myself, or have done. So let's have a look at this and see how you draw it. Now I do draw it in a different way because I have my own sort of I've worked this out for myself. I'll try and show it the way that she has in a step out, but I'm not necessarily going to guarantee that I'll carry on with that as well. Okay, so the way I would do it is I start with a sort of like a squashed flower shape. So squashed being that it's wider than it is tall, in that kind of way. Then, just move that up for you and perhaps zoom in. There we go. And then I sort of imagine there's a circle going through the centre of this flower, and I just draw it around like that. And we end up with something that's starting to look a fair amount like a poppy seed head. Now, what Lisetta does with hers is we're going to pick a central point and we're going to draw lines from the centre of these little petal shapes here. And that looks now starting to look very much like the top of a poppy. Then I'm going to swap my pen for a finer pen and I'm going to draw some broken aura lines in like that from where these little petals dip inwards. And while I've got my finer pen out, I'm just going to add some ink. I find this easier to do with a finer pen if I want to keep it nice and neat. I'm also going to add some line weight to the left and the bottom, just to give this a bit of, interest and variation there. And then I'm going to use this as well to add some line weight to the left and the bottom of this. And it does very much look like a poppy seed head. Not entirely, but close enough. Hence the name Poppins. And then all we need to do now is to add a bit of a stem to it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to, instead of drawing just straight lines, I'm going to curve mine. Perhaps if I start at the bottom. So if I draw a straight line, I'm going to start to curve it as I get close to this. And it feels that it's almost, what do you call those things? Oh, golf balls on a tee, where they sit in like a little cup. It gives it that kind of feeling. which I do rather like, I do have to say. So there we go. So we can do this in this, I prefer to draw this way, but the way that Lisetta draws hers is, I'll double check, starts by drawing the stem, and I am going to just flare mine out at the top that little bit. Then a rounded cap on the top, or it's a letter C, isn't it? Leaving that gap there. And then we can use this as a way of fitting our flower in between the gap. And everything else to create this basic Poppins is exactly the same. So we've got that going on. So go to my finer pen so I can add some line weights. I like to do this because it adds dimension almost instantly, which you can then enhance with whatever medium you choose to add colour or shadow with. So again, I'm going to go from in between these petals and I'm going to draw a line. It's as if I was going around this ball, because if you imagine a finger, if you look at your finger as you draw along a ball, it doesn't go in a straight line, it curves round. So we're mimicking that curve around. And there's an odd number of petals here. They haven't got, I've only got 2 dips on this side, which is fine. But if I really wanted the third one, there's nothing to say I can't add it in just like that. Again, I'm just going to add a bit of line weight at the bottom and the top of these lines. The other thing I noticed that she did in her step out, that's Lisetta, is add a little bit of line weight on the ends of these ones that form the seed pods. Now, in my mind, if I want to make them look like poppies, I'd actually make these not quite lines, or they'd have a thicker area in the middle. The other thing I want to do is to keep moving my board around here. I'm going to extend my stems here, because I'm going to put a frame around all of this afterwards. See what I mean? Okay. Now then, I love these shapes, and I'm going to add a couple more, and I am going to do this in my kind of way, simply because I'm familiar with it and it's easier for me to draw this. That's all. But I would urge you, or perhaps suggest to you, that you experiment and have a look at these things for yourself and work out which way round you like to draw things. Okay, so I'm going to have a stem that goes off here. Like so. And I did use the thicker pen, didn't I, to add the lines in. That's okay though, I can live with that, because it's all variation and variety. But I'm going to go back to the 0.25 here just to add the corner rounding in. This little flowery top of the seed pod. And then I'm going to, instead of going right to the edge, I'm going to start a little way in from the edge of each of these petals and just draw a kind of star shape like that. And that star shape I'm going to add a little ball, a little black dot at the end, just to finish it off. Sometimes shapes look quite nice when they are just left, you know, sort of like all lines are, but I often like to put an end on them. So let me zoom back out because I'm finding it hard to keep everything on screen. So you can see I've got a long narrow piece of paper today, and it's just a little bit over 8 centimetres by 17 centimetres. So I think this way it's 6 3/4, about 6 3/4 inches. This way though is, let me have a look, 2.5 to about 3 1/3 inches, there or thereabouts. It's not quite long enough and narrow enough to be a bookmark, but it's a pleasant, I quite like working on shapes like this from time to time. Okay, so just add that there. So I'm going to carry on growing this, but I'm not quite sure how, but we'll work it. Now we've got curvy petals here, so what if we made, I say petals, the shapes at the top of the seed pod. So what if we made them a little bit on the spiky side? Just going to construct it in exactly the same way. Again, I'm going to have the legs of the seed pod, or the legs, it's not a leg, is it? It's a stem. Sometimes I really do wonder about my brain. And then in the middle of this one, I'm going to put something that will look a little bit like a hole. You see, the top of it, I thickened that line, but I wanted to leave that little space there to suggest, I don't know if you can see the little white gap. There's a little white gap in here. I've left that there to suggest there's a hole here, which is lovely. Okay, I'll just zoom out a moment. This time I'm going to add these shapes in a little bit differently. So I'm starting by auraing the outside, and then I'm going to add these divisions in with double lines like this. So it's a slight variation. And I also want to go back and just round these off, like so. I'm just going to pop some line weight to the left and bottom of these mostly. There we go. That one there, and around here as well. So we've got that happening here. Okay, let's do another one. I'd like one up here. This time I think, have a look. I've put 3 lobes in. I am going to put a dot in the centre, and I may just pop in 3 more lobes as if they're behind that one. And then I can draw in my circle here, which is a bit bigger than the others. I'm drawing behind this one, so I'm going to carry on with my pen. And here, and carry on with my pen. I forgot to flare it out at the top, but we can give that illusion by adding a little bit of corner rounding, like so. And I'm just going to go around this and add some weight there. Then what I'm going to do here is something a little bit different. But in poppy seed heads, you have these little openings around them, which is where these seeds fly out of. The seeds are contained in this capsule, and as the wind shakes it back and forth, the seeds are rattled out, and they're so tiny they can get carried away on the wind. Not hellishly far, but far enough. Okay, I'm going to add some lines here and in these ones, like so. And then for these, I'm going to, if I zoom in, oops, wrong button. You might be able to see that I'm adding a little curve under the top of each of these, and then the bottom bit is where I'm going to add black just to colour it in. So it looks hollow. That little bit at the top looks like we're looking inside it, that it's got some solidity to it. And I'm also going to do something a little bit different here. I'm starting these curved lines a little bit underneath these shapes, and I'm going to put a little curve there and just bring it down like that. So if I put the little curve, draw that line in, the long line, and then I'm going to join it on a little bit like that. And yep, I can even squeeze that one in, and it's connected with this one, but that's fine. It'll be fine. So I have to say, it's been a very strange week for me. Well, actually more than 1 week. It just feels that, you know, I had plans, lots of things I needed to do and to get done, and it's just been very strange. And strange people, you know, I say strange, people I don't often hear from getting in touch about various things going on, sort of news and all sorts of things happening this week. I don't know what's up, but it's been very, yeah, strange week, and it hasn't finished yet. But, you know, there we go. Okay, the next one, just for another piece of variation, I'm going to draw a flat, or, you know, sort of like squashed circle, almost like a dish or a plate. I'm going to put 2 little lines on the outside edge and then just join them underneath, because that will give me something that looks a little bit like a dish. And then in the middle, I'll use my finer pen. I'm going to put a little, it's like a letter C there. I'm going to thicken that side, and it'll hopefully will make it look like we've got a little dip there, especially if I put a couple of dots along the edge. Okay, now rather than put a circle underneath here, I'm going to do something that will make it look a little bit more like a poppy seed head. So I'm coming from the edge, drawing around in a short line, same on the other side, and then these are the ones I am going to connect with a circle. I've had to pretend I'm drawing behind there. So this is beginning to look a little bit more like a poppy seed head. Obviously it wouldn't quite be this flat, and I do want to add the stem here, but the stem would come down here, I think. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to knock off a bit of one of them so I can just keep going here. Kind of makes sense. Not the best placement. If I'd stopped and thought before I did this, I'd have moved this up a little bit, but it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to put some of these openings in here, but rather than circular, I'm giving them a flat bottom, so they're like little arches. And then I'm going to add perhaps what we, that doesn't work. I know what I was thinking. It doesn't work, so I'm just going to make them all black again. So then the next, I'm definitely changing this, not quite completely, but I've put a couple of bands there, because then I can add my lines going down, and I'm doing them with the thicker pen. Like so. I do want to aura the ones on the very outside like that, so we've got these distinct areas, because then I can come to this. I'm going to flip this. No, I'm going to keep it this way. And I'm going to fill this middle space with betweed. So betweed, you draw along the line and then start to bend out towards the top boundary, as it were. And you just move it along a little bit and then get them to connect. And when they start to overlap, you keep doing the same kind of thing. There's just something lovely about that, filling this kind of space. So I'm going to do exactly the same kind of thing in these smaller spaces to the side. Like so. I always start on the left with this pattern. Do you know, it took me an age to crack this how to draw betweed. I just couldn't get it. And then I saw it on a video. I'm going back quite a long while now. I can't remember whose it was, whether it was Entangle themselves or somebody else. And I just went, oh, is that how you do it? Oh, okay. As one does. Okay, so what I'm going to do for the next one is I'm going to do this in the way that Lisetta had done. So I'm going to draw my seed pod shape first. So it's fairly straight lines there, then the bulb, and then back up. And I can also then put my stem on, and I can work out where this stem is going to go. Hopefully it's going to go down there, here, and I think I'll have it going off that way, because it can bend behind these where we can't see what it's doing. And while I'm here with this, just going to add some ink to this one. There we go. Okay, so at the top here, I want to put something like this disc on, but I want it a bit more frilly. So I'm just going to frillify the shape. So just have little curves going outwards. And I forgot to leave a gap between these lines and this. But it's no problem, because we can just create that illusion of some thickness just with line shadow, not shadows, line weights, just like that. Okay, now I am going to pop in some bands like this. This time I'm going to use my finer pen to pop in things in Poppins. And pop in these, and I think I'll stick to adding shadow, or the line weight, increasing line weight to the top and to the right of these little arches, because that creates that kind of shadowing. And of course, by colouring in here or adding shade, we can do that. And then I'm going to draw like a star shape in the top, because I just think that will work. There's a lot more. So these lines I aimed towards the middle of each of these little bits that curve out, the little petals that curve out. So that's quite nice. Okay. So we want to do something with this. And again, I'm going to separate this into 3 sections, I think, using double auras. And then what I'm going to do with these is not right at the top, not right at the bottom, and not right in the middle, just above the middle is where I'm going to put full orbs in, like so. Then I'm going to add others tucked behind, like this. And yes, I am using the finer pen. And just fill that space going top and bottom. And it gives a wonderful knobbly texture to this lovely seed pod. Okie dokes. I'm concentrating on that for a moment. I forgot to speak. It happens. Can you believe October is nearly over even? It's the 28th today. It'll be Halloween on Monday. And then we'll be into November on Tuesday. I don't know where the time is going, but it's going. I think I want to put something in here. And again, I think I'm going to draw where I want the seed pod to go before I add anything to it. And this one, I think I'll do this completely differently, where I'm going to put a kind of ledge there, and then I'm going to pop a rounded shape on the top. So it's using the way that Poppins is constructed, but to create something that looks quite different. And I'll come back to that. I'm adding the stem in first, because that makes sense to me to do it this way. This bit at the top is going to be interesting, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fill it with a texturing pattern that is made up of curved ends or upside down C's like that. So hopefully you can see that. Yes, you can see that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and just add a little bit of ink to the top of it, just to thicken the top, and it starts looking like there's a little hole there or something going on there. Okay, next thing, I am going to pop another line there because it looked a bit awkward as it was. See that there? And for this one, I think I'm going to separate this into sideways, instead of having vertical lines, having them horizontal going round. And I've curved them to mimic the curve at the bottom. And strictly speaking, that should have curved down, I think, but we'll be all right. And I am going to fill these bands, well, certainly the middle one, I'm filling with the curved version of Shattuck. So yeah, so It's really hard to believe that we're nearly at the end of October. It really is almost beyond belief. I can't believe how fast time seems to be flowing. It seems to be flowing faster the older I get, in some ways. I actually quite like that just as it is, but what I might do here is, because I want this to be a seed shaker, I'm putting my little holes in there. I'm putting line weight underneath that line at the top and just down the right side. And there we've got a poppy shaker. So we've got quite a few here. Right tangled mess. But I like tangled messes. Okay, let's have a look at doing something like this again. So I'm going to start with this kind of shape, and I think we might pop this like a upside down V with ends that curve in there. I'm going to give myself that space for my shaker bits, and then it looks a bit like a perfume bottle now, doesn't it? Now, as much as I like stems that just stick straight onto this seed pod, I'm also very fond of creating almost architectural kinds of connectors for stems. So I'm going to do that here, and I'm then going to draw the stem. So I'm looking at where I can aim it. I think it's going to have to go over this way. So there, all the way behind there, there, and all the way there. And then this side, there, and across to there. That'll work. That will work. So here, this will be the thicker side, but when I get down to the bottom, or down to the end, towards the end of the stem, this becomes the bottom part and this becomes the top part. So put those there. Do I have a little bit? No, it doesn't come out the other side. I'm also going to add line weight, side and underneath those, to the bottom and part way up the sides, like so, and under here and there. Just a little bit there. It's a very strange shaped seed pod, but I think it'll work, and I'm going to put that line in like I did in the last one, because I really like the way these grow upwards from this. These little openings go here. It looks very much like a building on a tall stem, or an unusual kind of birdhouse even. So I'm going to pop another line in there, and then, ooh, what can I do? Shall I, shan't I? Let's pop another one in the bottom. Okay, let's do I think this is doodah. So I'm alternating the lines where they stop. So I've just done one where I start at the top and I stop short of the bottom line. The next one I'll start a little bit short of the top line and end at the bottom line. So they overlap with a break and it looks a bit like a zip. Hence the name doodah, I gather. So that actually adds a really nice kind of pattern there. I've messed up a bit in the middle. Part of me thinks I should have started in the middle and worked my way out, but you live and learn. The top here, I really liked this kind of texture I put down here, these little upside down U's, and I'm going to do the same here, but I'm going to use upside down V's. And on this side, I'm going to have to put half ones in towards the edge. But again, I'm just going to add some ink at the top of them just to suggest they dip in a little bit. And adding a bit of shadow in there or colour in there will bring that out. I really like that one. Who'd have thought it? There we go. So what I'm going to do, because I've done all of my doodads, these ones, I'm just going to draw in some of my border here. And I drew it in pencil freehand, so it's all going to be a bit wobbly and wonky. So I'm playing with that wobbly and wonkiness. So I draw this in. And I think I'm going to call that done. I'm just going to zoom out because I am going to use a pencil. I'm going to be a bit naughty. I'm going to use a pencil and a ruler just to draw across here so that I can complete this and I can trim this piece of paper afterwards then. Or now, as the case may be. There we are. So we've got everything there going behind the frame is behind there. So I'm just going to eyeball this. Got my paper trimmer out. Do not give me scissors to cut a straight line because I cannot cut a straight line for love or for money here. Right, it's got a piece of scrap paper there. So I've got this. Next job, erasure. As in, I need my eraser to, I am going to erase the pencil lines. Oh gosh. Okay, Angela, we're going to make a mess of it now. Because this ink hasn't quite fully dried at the top. It's okay though. I can fix that. That's what white gel pens are for. Okay. Right then. Now, to add shadow, I'm working on marker paper. And marker paper is not the best thing to use graphite on because it's very smooth paper, and I mean very smooth. So I'm going to get my alcohol markers. These are my bang crash wallet, my Artezas, and I have that could be interesting. I've got yellowish grey colours, which could be interesting. And I have got, where's the ones I like? Okay, not beige and vanilla, sand dollar, one pearl, sand dollar, and there's another colour that I like to go with them that's on the pinky side. Bet you I can't find it now though. This is what you call not being organised. I'm not well known for my organisation at times. I think it's because I never fully stop and think about what I'd like to do before I do anything. It might be that the beige will work. I think it will. So I've got those, and the other colours I wanted was, I've got silt green, army grey and camo, is it? Army green. No, there's another, oh no, what colour did I want? Camo, was it camo green? No, sage green, there we are, got them. So I've got an interesting range of colours here. I haven't got any browns or reds, but I've got some interesting ones. These are Arteza Ever Blends. So I'm only going to do a couple of these just to see what happens and, you know, just to give you an idea of how I would add colour. So I'm looking for those yellow greens, which of course naturally, oh, yellow grey. Thought I had loads of them, but you know. Okay, so this is the lightest colour. And when I add alcohol markers, I do like to, well, it varies. I mean, I vary my methodology, but sometimes I like to fill in the area that I'm going to add shadows to with the lightest colour. It sort of primes the paper ready for the other alcohol markers, so they will blend more easily. That's the theory, and I actually think it works. So shadows, I want some shadow underneath these parts. Now this is the medium colour, and so I am going to be mindful of how much I put in. I want to highlight over to this side, so I am going to map that out with this colour. I'm then going to go for the darker of the colours, because I now have an idea of where I want the darker colours and how much I want. So I do want a little bit of the dark right round the edge, underneath all of these, but perhaps a bit further down over here. So I've got some idea of my shadow. Now I'm going to use the medium tone, and I'm just going to go around the edge of this darker colour, and I'm going to use the medium colour just to blend it out. And then I'm going to use the lighter colour along the edge of the medium colour and a little bit further in, just to help to blend that out. And I'm leaving a tiny little spot I haven't gone over, because when you go over the same colour with the same colour with alcohol ink, when it's called glazing, and it adds more colour to it, so it darkens it, so you can build layers up like this. Okay, what I'm going to do in the outside bit is I'm going to have a look at where I want the darkest areas, which is going to definitely be at the middle. I can see that I've got a lot of ink around the edges, like so. So I'm just going to add little dots of this colour there. Excuse my hand going across. I'm not the most organised in the world. This is the medium colour, and I'm just blending this darkest colour out a little bit towards the middle. And I'm going to leave a ring of white here, of, you know, uncoloured paper. So I'm going around the edge there, and then I can come back with my lightest colour and use that to blend these edges, but to create that highlight in the middle there. And these will become more apparent as these alcohol markers dry. Okay, I've got the lightest colour here, so I'm going to go down my stem while I've got it in my hand, just to prime the paper. Then I'm going to use the darkest colour towards the bottom of this, because the this is the left-hand side, but it's more the upper surface, if that makes any sense. And then I'm going to use the medium one just over that and a little bit into the other space. And then I'm going to come back with the lightest colour and just blend that out on the edge, like so. And I think I'll need the darkest colour, because I need some shadow underneath here where the stem meets the... That'll work. The seed head. So already that's beginning to give us some kind of dimension there. So I'd approach all of these in a similar kind of way. Here I'd have the highlight up here. On this one it would be more or less to the same side. Or you can just be consistent about where you put it. Somewhere in the middle would work on each one. Okay, let's go to something that's a little bit different. Let's go to this one. So I don't have my lightest colour, but I do now, I think. Yeah. So I'm going to fill in just these sections to begin with. Or actually, no, I'll do the whole lot. Problem with doing the whole lot is that the alcohol can blend from one section to another. So if that happens, it'll be a good example to show you. And actually, I think what I might do with this one is use it and show you how glazing can work. I've done a little bit there, but I'm going to let that dry. I'm also going to do the stem. And again, I'm going to go down the edge closest on the bottom there and add some more colour. And then with these, I'll do the same kind of thing, just colouring this in. I'm going to add a little bit extra on the tips of the petals and around the centre here. Let it dry and I'll come back. Once it's dry, the alcohol inks won't move quite so much. I can see the difference. I'm not sure is it showing up on the screen? I'm not entirely sure. Okay. So, one more in these colours. You have a look at, this one is the same as these, it's just the top that's the variation, so that's okay. Have a look at this, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to map out with this colour where I want the highlight to be. So I want the highlight to be here. And then I'm going to use the medium tone just to go around the edge of it, and then to fill in where I want the medium tone, mostly. And I'm likely to fill all of it in with the medium, all the remaining area in with the medium tone. Like so. Then I can use the darker tone just to go where I want the shadows the most. And I can use how much I've put in of the medium tone as a guide to how thick I want this darkest line to be, this darkest area to be. Then I'm going to go back with a medium. Nope. Yes. And just go over the edge of this. Because I want this and the medium colour really to overlap and to be nice and cosy and blending from one from the other. Then I'm going to go to the edge of the medium with the lightest tone. Just fill this in. I'll let that dry. And then I'm just going to do the stem for this one. So here I can see that I've got the thickest line on this side, the right hand side, as I'm looking. So this here is where I'm going to put my shadows. Now then, this stem goes underneath this seed pod. So what I've done here is I've created a bit of a shadow there underneath it. And the same at the top. So when I come with the medium one, medium shade, I just want to go over the edge here and perhaps extend that dark area just a little bit, and then I can come back with the lighter tone. The lighter tone will lighten the other colours that little bit as well. It almost bleaches them or pushes them away or into the paper, whichever. Right, this is dry, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to glaze where I want these the darkest. So I want them darkest just underneath that little flowery bit at the top. And on the insides of these sections, I'm going to add a bit more colour to the tips of these petals and around there. I'm going to add more colour here to the underneath of that. And we'll let that dry and see what happens. Okay. So I'm just going to cap my pens. This is always a dodgy time because I could end up capping them wrong. So we've got some yellowy greeny ones here. So let's go for some that are more of the pearly colours. I think I'm only going to use 2 colours. I'm not sure. Let me have a look. That's beige. You can't see, sorry. This is me trying to work out which. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, okay, we can do this. All right, so let me take one of the ones that's got some patterning in it. Let's go to this one. And I'm going to use my darkest colour first, which happens to be Sand Dollar. And I'm going to pop that down the centre of these betweeds, just like that. Because that's where I want some shadow. I want some shadow underneath this ring. And perhaps a little bit towards the sides where we've got that double boundary. And of course at the bottom, because that will be in shadow. And where things are behind each other, there'll be a certain amount of cast shadow. Next step, I'm going to add, I think I'm just going to be adding the medium shade by the looks on it, which is fine. I'll just colour over it all. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the medium shade to the top and bottom of these bands, like so. And then I'll come back with the lightest, oops, wrong end. The lighter shade, which is pearl, if I remember rightly, I did say. And I'm also going to put this where I want little bits of highlights on these betweeds. It will be very subtle, but it will be there. Here I know I want the highlight just off to one side a little bit. So this is the Sand Dollar, which is the darkest shade. And then I've got the beige, which is the lighter shade. So I'm just using that to soften that edge and blend them together. Just to do that, you don't go over it once, you go back and forth just to encourage one ink to sort of like dissolve in the other. So we've got that happening. I may need, and there's no may about it, find the right pen. I'm going to go back here with Sand Dollar and just go over where I want the shadows. Like so. And that'll be quite nice. Here I'll want some shadows to this side. I want a longer one this side and a shorter one this side. And in the top I'm going to put the darkest section there and a little bit around the far away edge. Then let's come back with some beige just to blend the edge there out. The same here really. Blend the edge out. Like so. Then I've got my lightest colour, which is the pearl, and I'm going to use that just to fill that area in, but also to blend those edges out. And the same here. This section, we pop the highlight in. This time I'll go to my medium colour next. Medium shade. Then to the darker shade. And I'll work back with the medium shade. Just to blend that darker one out. And then in the middle, we can use the pearl just to sort that out. And this stem here, this one down here, is the one that's belongs to this particular seed pod. So I've put the darkest colour there, and rather than fuss around with the medium colour, I'm just going to use the lightest colour here just to blend the edge of this out. And we've got one there. So that's looking rather cool. Okay. I'm going to do just one more, And I think the one I'm going to tackle is this one here. I may end up doing another one, mind you, because I can get a bit like that. So here I'm going to use these lovely greeny colours. If you've had a look at the community tab, you'll have seen what the Hollybore and Quasila the other day, and these are the colours I used on that particular drawing. So that was a sage green, this one is silt green, and this very dark one is army grey. And I'm only going to put the tiniest amount at the top of this, each of these in the top of each of those little areas, and that gives some quite intense shadow. I'm going to use it for the shadow in here. With alcohol markers, they dry a lot lighter than when they're wet. So I'm just putting a little bit of the darkest colour there on the edge. I'm using the medium just to blend that out and to pull that out a little bit, and then I'll complete this with the lightest shade. I'll put all my light shades in. Light shades, they're not light shades. Lightest shade of colour. My light shades are hanging from the ceiling or on lamps. Goodness sakes. Honestly, sometimes I worry about myself. There's the darkest, so we go back to the medium. Just to move that darkest shade out so we don't have a harsh line there. And then to the lightest shade, again just softening that edge, blending the medium shade out, but trying to leave that nice bright highlight in the middle. So try not to go over that. Now the principles I'm using here are the same no matter what medium you're using, really. It's just that I really like alcohol markers, but I also really like other kinds of media to use. So with this one, I'm going to fill this one in first with the lightest colour. Then I'm going to pop in the medium colour. Pop in the medium colour into the Poppins. Seriously. Okay, and then the darkest one, and I'm just going to add some to the edge. Back to the medium. This wouldn't be so much of a potch if I wasn't insistent on putting the caps on every time I use them. And if I wasn't doing them I more or less do them one by one because I don't want the alcohol markers to dry. Okay, then I'm going to use this darkest colour to get the shadow and from underneath this there, here as well, a little bit there, and then down here I've actually missed where the highlight is. So let me see if I can use the lightest colour too. It will blend, but I really want to blend it where the lightest colour is, but it'll be fine. And then we've just got these little bands. I'm just going to put some of the lightest colour on the edge. I'm going to do the same here to the edge, the bottom. I'm leaving white highlights there because I want something that's a bit whiter. If you want white with alcohol markers, you need to leave them white. This one, my idea of glazing hasn't really worked. So I can see the difference, it's very subtle. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to use the medium shade to add my shadows in, like so. And I'm going to come back with the lightest shade and just give that a bit of a blending, like so. I'm going to do the same with these petals. I'm just going to put the lightest shade on the tips, a little bit around the middle. I'm not lightest, it's the medium shade. What am I talking about? I've got this. I've got the darkest shade, and I do want to fill that little area there in. I'm just going to put a couple of dots on the edge of each of these petals of this darkest shade. I'm definitely going to put some there. I also want to pop some underneath this and around the bottom, and perhaps to the sides, like so. I'm going to get the medium shade, just blend it out. And then come back with a lighter shade just to blend all of these out then, like so. And these. So the last thing I'm going to do for now, oh, I haven't done that petal-y thing there. Better do that before I finish. I'm only just over an hour. I thought, oh, I'll do these. It'll only take me half an hour. Yeah, right. Okay, so I want the lightest colour because I'm going to fill all of these little bits with the lightest colour. It's because I want the paper damp. I keep saying this. Medium colour to put the shadows in on these. I'm going to put a little bit around the edge, certainly in the middle. Then I'm going to come back with the darkest shade, and I'm definitely putting plenty where these overlap and in the middle. Then I'll come back with the medium shade. It's going to blend this dark out along the edge, in the middle. Oops, as I colour. Oh no, I didn't colour my finger, I thought I had. Just bring these, that, and I'm going to add colour to these little bits inside the seed pods because white is standing out too much. Down here I really do need something a little bit darker on these edges, so I'm adding the medium, but for this side I'm also going to go back and add some of the darkest shade I'm using, just a little bit. Back with the medium just to blend them that little bit. So there we have a pile of Poppins. And while I'm doing what I need to do with the video and getting it uploaded and everything, I'll finish colouring these and I'll add a background to it, background colour in that square, maybe even some background patterns. Should be simple because if I do have background pattern, it's going to be something like, don't think I'll use tipple, perhaps the little spirally one, print on, maybe. I'll see how I feel, but I also have a bit of a thing for putting triply in, just plain triply, tiny little triplies, but I'll see how I feel. So I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me. It's been a bit of a random one. I keep losing my train of thought, but I know why that is. Nothing to worry about, it's just one of those days. So I'm going to say thank you so much. Please look after yourselves and find time to be creative and see if you can come up with any other Poppins variations of your own, with different, just by simply varying things, taking one thing, seeing what happens, take what you like, repeat it in another variation and add something to that. It's iterating patterns, I think it's called, or iterating drawings that you change a little bit each time and you end up with something completely new and different, or very, similar but different perhaps. and could be completely new. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. It's now in my head. So it'll come out again, or variations of it. I'm going to be reaching for my sketchbook later to add it to some work some things I'm doing in there. So I'll say bye. So otherwise I'll witter forever. Bye. Look after yourselves. See you soon. Ta-ra.